friends, I'm Daniel Nesbitt, and this is Designing a Serif Font in glyphs-mini. In the last episode, we made some really good progress, and now we're only down to 3 letters left. Now, while they don't really look a whole lot alike, they actually can share a bit of DNA amongst them. So I figure we're just going to hop right in and give this a go. So the first letter I'm going to jump in and work with is the letter X. Now for the letter X, my plan, should it actually work, was to kind of riff this off the letter V. The reason that I'm doing that is I kind of like having these little spaces or lines here, just to give it a little bit of fun and excitement, and also it's just a little bit easier to deal with, if I'm being completely honest. So actually what I'm going to do before I start getting too far into that is I'm going to go through and just kind of clean some of this up a little bit here. I've been kind of running a bit sloppy with my vectors in the last few episodes here, so I figured probably should go ahead and clean those up, particularly since if you haven't caught, I did make a separate video, just kind of a one-off video the other day on creating clean vectors, so probably should practice what I preach, I think. So anyway, effectively what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of use this as the starting point. And really all I'm going to do for the time being is just do my best to kind of eyeball things into place here. Now there is a few things that I know I'm going to be creating problems, we'll put it that way. But we'll just kind of work on those as we go. So with that said, we're already kind of at that first place. I think, so what I need to kind of work out a way to have these lines meet up a little bit better, obviously. Kind of goes without saying down. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to kind of loosely adjust all of this here. For now, I'm just going to work on the on one half. I think I probably could just delete that for now. And maybe let's just drop this down a little bit as well, just to kind of give it some of the thickness back. The other thing I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to go ahead and widen out that corner a little bit, so I just get a little bit more to work with. And then if we copy paste that, flip it, and then do my best to line it up here. So there is going to be a few things that we're going to have to deal with on this. But there we go. And actually what I am going to do is, I'm just going to go through and write a word here as well to help us out. So the first thing that I'm seeing here is there's actually a lot of vertical space there, which I'm really not totally digging. So I'm going to bump that up maybe to something like that. We're going to bring these down here. And then actually just kind of do the opposite. We're going to kind of thin that stroke up a little bit. Don't want to bump it, but we'll grab it, copy paste it. Did I? I did. Sometimes I double paste. I really can't tell you why I do that, but there we go. But we'll kind of loosely line that up there. We'll back out a little bit. So it is looking a little bit, whoops, don't want to print. Let's see, there we go. So it's looking a little bit better. It does kind of look a little bit funky too, though. So here's the point where I ask myself, do I own that or do I fix it? I'm actually going to back over here, because I do have some funky letters like the R here, which does kind of help me, feel comfortable keeping that. I'm gonna let this marinate. We're gonna let this marinate. Let's see how it looks as a lowercase letter. So one of my favorite, well, actually I should back up here real quick too. So I do want to make sure my side bearings are set. There we go. Okay, so now if we hop down to the lowercase, I mean, some of it is just going to be as easy as lining that up there. I'm also going to take the lowercase, we'll do the H just because. but I'm going to kind of line things up here a little bit as well. I actually don't want to edit the H though. I want to edit this point. There we go. So it's not too far off. May just let that roll for now. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is make sure that I'm editing the right character here. There we go. And we'll just give us some space here. So I'll take all of these points. And for now, I'm just going to kind of move it down a little bit. I think the best way to handle this, or at least what I'm telling myself might make sense, is I am going to bring that down just a tad, just to kind of give a nod to kind of the shape we've got going on there. We'll grab all this, copy paste it, we'll do a little bit of a flip there, and then we'll see kind of how close this all lands once I zoom in the right direction. And again, there's going to be some cleanup involved with this, but I'm just kind of building things out a little bit fast right now. There are some additional things that I'll want to take a look at here in just a moment, but for now, I think we're kind of making some kind of progress here. Kind of looks like a scissor lift, a thing, you know, where you get on a little platform. They're like little electric carts. You drive around them in warehouses, and it goes and it kind of expands. It's kind of got that same feeling going on here, which is kind of funny. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and own this. So what I'm going to do on both of these is we're just going to go through and kind of get some of these points cleaned up here. I think I actually have two. I do. Maybe I have more than two. Looks like I got some stray points in there as well. Okay, so we're going to do that, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. I'm also going to go through... Actually, I think what I'm supposed to do is do that first, because it gets rid of the open corner. Well, I guess it still makes the same problem. Very well, we'll deal with that. So that one looks good, that one looks good, and I'm pretty sure I just got 1 point there. So what I'm going to do then is going through and doing all that. I'm going to open up all of those corners. I'm kind of working in tandem here a little bit because it's going to be the same for both of these. So the thing with an X is that you don't really want each of these lines to be crossing in the same place. Think about it like a glass of water. If you ever put like a straw in a glass of water, and if you look across the very top of the water, the surface of the water, it looks like it's breaking the straw. And the trick with an X is that we're effectively creating that same illusion. That whole thing with creating illusions in type design, like that's on full display right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of break that a little bit. And often what I find is it looks weird because I mentioned it and I'm looking for it. But when you step back and you start reading this in context, it does make more sense. So we're going to kind of let that play for now. I have to be the first to admit that the X definitely needs some work still. This was one of those things where, and I don't know if any other type designers watching this have ever gotten to this point, where something just, it looked better in your head. That's kind of what's going on here. So what we'll do, just kind of going off of that, is I'm going to take the word kicks here. And the reason that I'm doing that is because the K actually, I want not the K, or sorry, that, but I want the L, the lowercase l for that. But in the spirit of keeping it a word, we'll do that. All right. So the thing with the K is that it actually then riffs off of the X. So what I'm going to do is we'll do that, and then we'll do the H and the O there. And then effectively what I want to figure out is how do we convert this X into a K? Because right now it's looking a little bit funky. So one of the things that I'm probably going to do here is do something that I've never done before, actually. I never do this in type design. I usually I have it kind of connect somewhere here. But for the sake of trying some things that are different, that kind of just looks like a broken H, if I'm honest. So never mind that whole thing about me trying new things, because that didn't work. But what I will do is we'll just try and kind of even this out a little bit so that I can get rid of those 2 points, and we create that. And then effectively what I want to do is just bump that in more. And I think what I'm going to do as well is really diminish this here. So this is going to be a lot more than what it was with the X, but my hope is that it actually does a little bit better for the case. Then the other thing I'm going to do too is actually nudge this top chunk a little bit closer. And actually when I go back, one of the things that I should have done was also do that with the X as well. That might help with the warehouse equipment looking thing going on. So that helps a little bit. It definitely helps a little bit. So what I'm going to do then is we're just going to take the square here, and I'm going to just take that, and of course it doesn't want to rotate for me today, so we'll do it this way. We're just going to do the best here to kind of get that to line up somewhat right. That actually looks pretty close now that I think about it. But I'm going to do that, and then we'll make it the same height. Just kind of doing things very free flow here, but there we go. That's effectively what I was after. So it does start to look like a K after a while. We got there. All right. So the other thing that I'm probably going to do with this is, now that I've got that kind of working a little bit, I'm actually going to take this and move it up a little bit more. Maybe just something like that. I think that looks a little bit better. And effectively what I'm after here is just, I mean, number one, just making it not look like the H, but just to kind of give this a little bit of something that it looks like it kind of borrows from the X, but it's not completely there. So with all that done, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to grab all of these elements and we're going to put them over here. For the lowercase, I'm thinking I may try something like this. Because I know space is going to be at a premium a little bit. And I'm kind of thinking and hoping that we can kind of make this work here. So the bottom part is about the same width as the uppercase H, which is fine. But I am going to just kind of move this down a little bit. And then we're just going to kind of follow that in a little bit as well. And then the other thing that I'm going to do too is just find a spot where that maybe roughly intersects. So this is one of those things, if you're ever curious about that when you run into an issue like that, the units per M, which is one of the settings under the info tab here, down here, they moved it on me in this version, but this is effectively what we're running into. So 1,000 units, that's what this grid, if I go all the way back in, that's what this grid is 1,000 units per M. So if I had 2,000 units per M, it would be twice as dense on the computer, but what I'm running into is that it doesn't line up very nicely there, which is fine. I did kind of anticipate that might happen. My way around that, though, rather than trying to make that work, and it might not work as well as I want, what I'm going to do instead is just go ahead and merge all those shapes together. And then that way I've just got some clean lines here. And then I'm just going to go back and open those corners again so I can adjust this at a later time if I need to. But there we go. That's kind of a K there. I think that works pretty well. It's definitely interesting. Come to think of it, I think I'm actually going to take this. We're going to move that down some, and then we're going to take these 2 points and just kind of shift them down as well. Actually going to zoom in a little bit. One of the things I do like is that it does kind of keep a little bit of a faint line there, so you can kind of see where you're dragging it up and down. I think that helps kind of open it up a little bit, actually, now that I look at it. It does kind of mimic the X angle a little bit there as well, which is definitely helpful. And I think looking at this K up here, I am going to go ahead and actually bump that in. And for this, I'm just going to open up these two just to make this easy here. Make sure I grab the points that I want. And just one thing that I like about glyphs too is that I can open up a corner on the outside and it understands not to make a little chunk of pizza hanging off there. That's definitely helpful. So there we go. We've got an X and we've got a K in both upper and lower case. Next up for this one, I want to jump over to the Z, or the Z. I guess I've been watching a lot of European YouTubers lately, and so now I've got Z stuck in my head. But whatever way you wish to call this squiggly character, we're going to tackle it next. And for this one, it's a little bit unique because we've got this angle here, which runs from the top right to the bottom left, and that's usually not a very common thing in an alphabet. So just jumping back out here for a second, I think what I'm going to do is we're actually going to grab the E. The reason that I'm grabbing the E is because it's got a couple of points here that I want, which is these two here. So if we do that and then mirror it, you can already see we're getting almost exactly what we want. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in an H here. Actually, I take that back. We're going to pop in the E. Let's do that. So the reason that I'm using the E is because the bottom lines up there rather nicely. The other thing that I'm going to do, aside from editing the E, is apparently my mouse just doesn't want to cooperate today. There we go. So what I want to do is I'm just going to take all of these points and we're just going to move those over until they line up with the stem of the E. I'm not going to worry about those serifs over there. And then we're just going to take this and we're going to move that all the way back, and it snaps in line with the top of the E here, which is actually all right. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bump in the top here a little bit just to kind of mimic, I'm pretty sure that's 5 points there, so I'll have a 5-point difference here, 5-point difference here on the left and right values there. Again, like we've talked about in the past, that's just giving it a way to like feel upright effectively. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is we're just going to add some points here and make sure that it actually adds the points. And for this, I'm just going to create the shape first, and then we're just going to snap these 2 points into place. And then really all it comes down to is just making it look like it kind of has the weight to it effectively. So just going back to our measuring tool here, that was 170 points across. This is around 150. But this is where we kind of get into the visuals a little bit. So, and actually one thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bump that top back by, I think, oh, that must have been 10 points instead, or 20 points. So I'm going to kind of have it leaning back a little bit, or you know, it's going to be kind of tilted to the right, which is good. That's what we want. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it some side bearings here real quick. And then really it's just a matter of looking at this and then trying to decide, does this kind of feel the same weight as this? And if I do say so myself, I don't think I'm actually that far off. I'm looking at it fairly close, but even backing up a little bit, it doesn't look too bad. So we're going to roll with that. And Then jumping down to the lowercase here. So this gets a little bit tougher because I don't have the exact one-to-one thing like I did with the uppercase. I just have to figure out what I want to use with it. And there's not really anything that's obviously coming to mind in this. But what I am looking at here, actually, when I'm looking back at the top here, is like if I look at the Z and the K, they actually look... I actually wonder if it's the K maybe that's doing this to me. No, I think it might be the Z. So what I'm going to do while I'm sitting here and that's bugging me is I'm actually going to bump this and make this a little bit wider here. And I just went a few units in each direction. I think that actually works a little bit better. So if I just kind of pop back, I think it's a little bit better. I probably could even go a little bit more. And maybe that's okay. It's getting there. I think that's all right for now. So what we'll do then is we're going to take this Z. We're going to pop it down to the place down here. I think what I'm going to do, it's not exactly perfect, but I'm just going to use the N. And for the bottom, I'm just going to line up the stem with that edge. And let's line up the stem with that edge. And then I'm just going to pull the center point out of the way there. Or I suppose the spine would be the right way to put it. So let's do something like that. And then bringing this back in, we'll just get these points in place. And then I'm going to grab both of these points and make sure I get the right one lined up here. There we go. So now this one actually will look a little bit chunkier than the others. So if I just do, let's actually just surround this with a couple ends here. So you can definitely tell that this is a bit weightier than it should be. So effectively, I just need to go through and then figure out how to kind of get rid of some of the weight. Now the tough part is that the crossbars here do kind of keep some common weight. I think though, actually, this might be my saving grace here, is just to use the top of the T as my reference point, and maybe that is what gets me out of this dilemma. That actually does help quite a bit. So if we back out a little bit, not bad. Oddly, this one probably could benefit from being a little bit narrower, unlike the other one, which was a little bit wider. But there we go. It doesn't seem too offensive. We'll go that route. Perfect. All right. But jumping back out, you can definitely tell that it probably does need some more weight, just seeing it in context with the rest of the alphabet there. So we're going to have that just kind of take on a little bit more weight there. The Y definitely does look a little bit chunky, and I kind of wonder if there's kind of some multiple things going on here. Probably is. I am going to bump this out just a little bit more, just to kind of help it sum. And this is the tough part with the Z, is it's like if I do something like that, you can definitely tell that there's some weight stuff going on here. And this is probably something that we will need to address likely sooner than later. Yeah, it's going to take some fussing here. But I think, just my own 2 cents, I think we're actually going to probably call it for now. The reason is I really do need to get this into some sort of proofing sheet, which I think we can do in the next episode. And also, as you can tell, we have one letter left, which would be the S. But I also do want to pay some special attention to that as well. So there you have it. I think we'll call it good for there today. So we definitely made a bit more progress with the S just kind of coming in at the end here. Maybe fix some of the weighting issues, and then as you can see on the screen, we've still got a few things here for numbers and a little bit of punctuation there as well, getting the weighting right. And then the other thing that I would like to do is explore a little bit about kerning. That's something I really didn't do a whole lot of in the sans serif series, but I figured it might be kind of beneficial in this series to tackle a little bit of that. So if you're enjoying this series, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It's been fun watching this channel grow in 2020, seeing all of you who have subscribed, how many of you have commented, added your input, emailed me, so on and so forth. It's been absolutely wonderful to see. And if you enjoy this kind of stuff, if you want to learn a little bit more, I actually have an amazing newsletter that I started in 2021 called Letterform. I'll have a link in the description below. But basically, Letterform is a newsletter that I send out twice a month. And I like to go and do a little bit of additional tidbits, tips, tricks, things of that nature, answering any questions that you have that maybe it's not a big question that necessarily would be a video, but little tips and tricks and things of that nature, which I know a lot of people are always very much into. So if you're interested in that, like I said, the link will be in the description below. But with all of that, as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.